Now, Donald Trump just released his first major budget proposal. And of course, it happens to be a disaster for people who aren't defense contractors or CEOs of multinational corporations. So basically, regular people happen to be screwed. It's actually full of cuts that hurt regular people and are especially hard on people who are disabled and poor. Now, the Washington Post explains. The President Trump's first major budget proposal on Tuesday will include massive cuts to Medicaid and call for changes to anti-poverty programs that would give states new power to limit a range of benefits. Benefits, of course, like SNAP program, otherwise known as food stamps. And they write, Trump's budget reportedly includes a massive $193 billion cut to the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, commonly referred to as food stamps, over the next 10 years, slashing its budget by over 25%. Now, the food stamp cuts are part of a broader $274 billion cut that is labeled simply welfare reform. Lovely. So, hey, man, if you're poor, you're trying to get by on stagnant wages, well, we're not going to help you. We're going to give you a $274 billion cut in whatever benefit program you happen to benefit from. Wonderful. Now, the White House also says it will give states more flexibility to impose things like work requirements. Now, look, work requirements, they might sound reasonable, okay? And I think you could structure something that might actually be reasonable. But right now, what the Republicans are offering doesn't really take into account somebody's age, physical, or cognitive ability, or any sort of limitations put in place by the local economy. It simply is, you must work. Well, if you don't have things that are particular things, right? If you don't have these specific requirements put into this, where people can who aren't able to work or don't have job opportunities in their area, their community, well, then basically what it's going to do is just hurt people who otherwise are willing to work, want to work, but don't have the ability to do so for one reason or another. It's just going to harm people. Now, not only that, but according to the USDA, when it comes to the SNAP program specifically, most of the people that are on SNAP are children, the elderly, and the disabled. So let's break it down by numbers, right? In 2013, 44% of households with SNAP benefits were households with children. So that's a lot of households with families. So basically, you take away these food stamp benefits, well, you're going to take away food from families with children. Well, I thought you were pro-life. Oh, no, you're pro-birth. Then when the baby comes out and you can't afford to take care of it and you need a program like SNAP, well, we're going to take that away. Fuck you, I got mine. You should have been more responsible and not had that kid. Not only that, but 20% of households getting SNAP benefits also have a non-elderly disabled person. So this is somebody with a disability. All right. Not only that, but 17% of households receiving benefits are also elderly people who are likely no longer able to work or can only work part-time. Not only that, but benefits are also quite low. According to the Center on Budget Policy and Priorities, using numbers from the USDA, they found that on average, SNAP households receive about $255 a month. The average SNAP benefit per person is about $126 per month, which works out to about $1.40 per person per meal. So that's less than $1.50 a meal. These people are not living high on the hog. I know, I grew up in a household with SNAP, with food stamps. Trust me, not glamorous. We were not eating steaks, okay? And I know people growing up who had it worse off than I did. Ketchup sandwiches were a thing. So, come on. The whole thing that the right-wing meme that, oh my God, these people on food stamps, they're eating steak and lobster. No. When you have a good job and lots of money, that's when you can eat steak and lobster. When you're on food stamps, you're eating ramen. Now, not only that, but it turns out you earn more than these programs by working. So working is actually more cost efficient. You actually make more money when you work. Wow, what a surprise. Now, of course, that does depend on the job. The USD does note that 31% of SNAP recipients also work. So you can also work and still be too poor to afford food without help. That's the program that we're trying to preserve. And also it has something to do with those work requirements. Now, if the cuts to SNAP weren't bad enough, well, here comes Medicaid. But wait, didn't Donald Trump promise he wasn't going to cut Medicaid or Medicare or Social Security? In fact, here's a video of him saying just that.
Save Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security without cuts. Have to do it. Get rid of the fraud, get rid of the waste and abuse, but save it. People have been paying in for years, and now many of these candidates want to cut it. You save it by making the United States, by making us rich again, by taking back all of the money that's being lost.
You have to do it, though. You have to save Medicaid. You have to save Social Security, Medicare. Now, look, this bill doesn't cut Social Security, doesn't cut Medicare. But there is an $800 billion cut in Medicaid over the next 10 years. Now, that, of course, will see about 10 million low-income people lose their access to health care if this goes into effect. Now, I would expect that since Trump didn't design the budget, you think Trump's smart enough to design a budget? No. If this comes to Donald Trump's desk, this is basically Paul Ryan, this is basically the Republicans, the Freedom Caucus, the Republicans all getting together to create their dream budget. I expect Donald Trump to honor his word and veto this if this comes across his desk, if this makes it. In fact, he should be railing against those cuts, but is he going to do it? No, because he doesn't know what's in the bill. He doesn't care. He doesn't pay attention. He's got Mick Mulvaney out there in charge, and Mick Mulvaney loves cuts, loves cutting the government, loves cutting the idea of cutting Medicare and Medicaid and food stamps. And look, at this point, again, I have to mention, he's not cutting Medicare, but you don't think he wants to? Of course he does. Medicare and Social Security. But he did get these Medicaid cuts into this bill, into this budget. So, now, what Mick Mulvaney wants to do is he wants to take poor people and stomp them into the ground. That's what this whole budget's about. More cuts proposed by the White House include federal funding for Habitat for Humanity. So get rid of Habitat for Humanity, any of the federal funding anyway. Subsidized school lunches. Oh, if you're hungry, you can't afford lunch, sad day for you. You should go clean a toilet, as Newt Gingrich says. And the U.S. Interagency Council on Homelessness. So homeless people, screw you, man. Oh, you're homeless? Not my problem. We're gonna cut the funding for this program. For what? Well, I'll get to that. Now, here's where the money is actually starting to go. Now, the budget also contains $1.6 billion in funding for Trump's wall along the U.S. and Mexico border as part of a larger $2.6 billion spending hike for border security programs. Hey, man, we got to starve and kids and disabled people. You know why? So we can keep the Mexicans out, because they're the problem. You know that immigration right now, ignoring the fact that Mexicans are not the problem, immigration from Mexico is net zero. There are more people leaving the United States now than coming in. Now, ironically, if you build a wall, you keep them all in. That's the last thing you say you want to do, right? Ridiculous. And besides, a wall isn't going to stop immigration. There are things like tunnels. There are airplanes. All sorts of ways to get around a wall. Just ask the Mongolians. Now, here's more ridiculousness in this bill, in this budget. Trump's tax plan, which goes along with this budget, will cut business and corporate taxes to 15%, while cutting the tax rate for ordinary Americans from 39% to 35%. So that's pretty significant, right? Because the way that first tax is structured, that business tax, well, that just happens to affect the majority of Trump's businesses. So as a result of this budget, he and the other people who are in his income bracket, well, they're going to save millions. Not only that, but he plans on cutting the estate tax and capital gains taxes, something Republicans have been looking to do for a long time. Now, another change is eliminating the alternative minimum tax, which primarily affects people who are very, very wealthy, including Donald Trump himself. Now, for example, his 2005 tax return that was hugely hyped on Rachel Maddow's show showed that he paid $37 million in taxes. Now, he paid that much on his income thanks to the alternative minimum tax. Without it, he would have only had to have paid $5 million in taxes on a lot of income. Now, that happens to be a pretty significant chunk of savings. Oh, but that's okay, man. We get rid of that, all those taxes and stuff, and there's going to be economic growth. Growth for who? It's going to be growth for his wallet, man. Not for you. It's not going to trickle down to you. It's going to go right into his bank account. Where do you think it goes? Now, speaking of growth, the president's budget also promises to balance the federal budget in 10 years. Well, how? You're going to give billions of dollars of tax cuts to the wealthiest Americans. And not only that, but he's going to be spending more on a border wall as well as infrastructure. Now, I say that because, of course, his infrastructure plan is essentially a scam and a big way to give away to big corporations. Now, the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget estimated that the federal deficit is going to rise by $5.5 trillion over the first decade. Now, that's really important because Trump is promising, and the Republicans are promising, a 3% growth. Oh, we're going to offset the tax cuts by giving you 3% growth. And that's gonna make more money. See, we're going to be richer as a country and have more growth if we just give tax cuts to the most richest Americans. Well, as I just read to you, a lot of people say, no, that's actually not going to happen. The deficit is going to explode. And that's exactly what's going to happen, the deficit and the debt. Now, the same Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget said that even if lower taxes encourage people to save and invest for, and this is, look, this is a right-wing think tank, by the way. This is the Peterson Foundation funded think tank. And even they're like, what are you doing? These tax cuts are going to destroy the federal budget. Yes, we're in favor of tax cuts, but holy crap, yours are way, way too much. We have no way to raise revenue. Now, they said that even if lower taxes encourage people to save and invest more, the huge government deficits created by the budget would crowd out private investors and offset some of those direct effects. So they noted in a report. Now, you also have Alan D. Beard, a tax expert at the American Enterprise Institute, who is, again, this is another conservative research organization in Washington. He said that he and other researchers have repeatedly found that deficit-financed tax cuts were usually harmful to growth. So if we're in a deficit, don't cut taxes for the rich. Don't do that. Even conservatives are like, moron, you're going to blow up the deficit. He said, slashing rates at the top is probably the least effective way of spurring spending. However, because high-income households have the luxury of socking away a financial windfall. This is according to Nuriman Baravesh, chief economist at the research firm IHS Markit. The Trump plan, he said, quote, could end up hurting a lot of poor people without boosting growth. Even conservatives, man. You know why? Because it's bad policy. It's been shown it doesn't work. It's not because we hate rich people. It's not because we want to punish them. It's because trickle-down economics does not work. Yes, in the short term, some tax cuts will spur some economic growth, but then that goes away. And, of course, there's diminishing returns, and long-term, it ends up hurting the government. It ends up hurting more and more people and increasing the deficit and increasing debt. Now, how do you, what's the way to go? Well, if you want to have growth, you actually put more money into regular people's pockets. I know, shocking idea, right? Why? Because they spend the money. Rich people, they already have all the stuff that they need, so they save it. Okay, well, it's because they don't need to spend it. They're not going to spend it. They're not going to create economic growth. But you put more money into the hands of more regular people, people who are middle class or people who are in the working class, and they're going to spend most, if not all of it. because they need to. They have to. Rich people don't have to. Again, it's not about punishing rich people. It's about economic reality. It's about the fact that rich people just cannot make up for the spending power of the entire middle class. The top 0.1% can't make up for the spending of the rest of everybody else. They all need to have money too, so they can spend that in the economy. For the love of God, tax them. Tax the rich already. And then use that money to invest in roads, bridges, schools, and of course, help for poor people. Everything that this budget goes against. Everything the Republicans are trying to do right now is to rob poor people to give back to their rich donors. Even their infrastructure plan, as I mentioned, is garbage. But this is what the Republicans want. This is their priority. This is their dream budget. And it shows that they are not on your side. And they never will be on your side. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.